Hi everyone. The Declaration of Independence states that we all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness is usually thought of as each person freely pursuing joy and living in a way that makes you happy. But where can we find the greatest happiness? Psychologists aren't much help, as they spend most of their time studying depression. Those seeking happiness have turned to the books and programs of self-appointed experts, self-help gurus, life coaches, and the positivity of smiley face emojis. To explore the question of happiness, we will refer to Rudolf Steiner's philosophy of freedom. The original preface, The Goal of Knowledge, discusses where to find the sweetest joy. Chapter 13, The Value of Life, discusses how to experience the highest pleasure. In the original preface, Steiner describes the journey of the reader who studies the philosophy of freedom. The proper study of the book will result in the sweetest joys of life. At first, the reader is led into abstract regions, where thought must draw sharp outlines to reach clearly defined positions. But the reader is also led from arid concepts into concrete life. I am fully convinced that to experience life in all its aspects, one must soar into the realm of concepts. Whoever is limited to the pleasures of the senses misses the sweetest joys of life. The sweetest joys of life is soaring into the realm of universal concepts. Anyone who has immersed themselves in the philosophy of freedom has experienced sparks of thought that is like the striking of steel on flint. Why do conceptual thinkers like philosophers, mathematicians, and computer programmers love their work so much? Thinkers find more pleasure in the inner conceptual world than in the outer sensual world. If you ask a thinker if he wants gourmet food, fast cars, mansions filled with servants, sex, or scenic landscapes, he will of course say yes. But his joy is not limited to the pleasures of the senses. The Oriental sage requires his disciples to live a life of resignation and asceticism for years before he shares with them his knowledge. The West no longer demands pious exercises and ascetic practices to attain knowledge. It does require, however, a sincere willingness to prepare for science by withdrawing oneself a while from the immediate impressions of life and entering the realm of pure thought. The way to happiness, according to ancient sages, was to withdraw from the world and practice resignation and self-denial. Happiness, they say, is found in the present moment, by choosing not to think. In our age of science, it is also necessary to withdraw from the world, but then choose to think. Knowledge is attained by entering the universal realm of pure conceptual thought. This is the realm of intuitive insight, the sweetest joy of life. Let's move on to the highest pleasure in life. The highest pleasure in life is experienced not in resignation or submission, but by taking action. The source of moral ideals is the moral imagination. The realization of moral ideals depends upon whether his desire for them is strong enough to overcome pain and misery. They are his intuitions, the driving forces harnessed by his spirit. He wants them because their realization is his highest pleasure. The highest pleasure of an ethical individualist is to realize his ideals in life. He soars into the realm of universal concepts to imaginatively form his moral idea. Striving for lofty ideals empower his action. He does not need ethical theory to forbid him to strive for pleasure and then tell him what he should strive for. He will of himself strive for moral ideals if his moral imagination is active enough to inspire him with intuitions that give his will the strength to overcome all obstacles. Most of life is spent meeting our commonplace needs of survival, such as food, shelter, and security. We take satisfaction in life planning that ends in a comfortable retirement. But striving for great ideals requires taking risks and the strength of will to overcome all obstacles. Whoever strives after sublimely great ideals does so because they are the content of his own nature. Those who lack ideals find pleasure in satisfying their commonplace needs. This pleasure is trivial compared to the joy found in realizing one's ideals. Idealists delight in translating their ideals into reality. Realizing our noble ideals in the world at all cost brings us the highest pleasure. This is why social systems based on merit support the individual's pursuit of happiness. The greatest happiness is found when idealistic thinking sets lofty goals, and they are achieved by overcoming all obstacles.